I'm always a little bit afraid of the microphone when I first get to it. There are all those different sensitivities. Thank you so much for having me here. This has actually been a lot of fun, and I'll be honest, a little more unruly than I expected it to be. But I work with youth, and I can do unruly pretty much any way we want to. So thank you so much for having me. I suspect that part of the reason that clubs like yours, the Rotary Club, has people like myself come and talk about something is that it's far better to learn about something from someone who has a certain degree of passion in that thing than it is to, say, read up on it on Wikipedia or the internet somewhere. The internet's really kind of a dry thing. And I suspect, my suspicion of that is that the passion fills in gaps that we don't get from dry information. And you know when someone is passionate, I often sense it, when someone starts speaking a little more quickly about something, as if they need more words to get it in than they think you have time for. Or they raise their voice a little, and this is the dead giveaway. You know someone is passionate when they start pounding the table, when they say, this is too important. We are not letting this pass in conversation without giving it special emphasis. And you know someone is passionate about order when they pound the table with one of these. But I'll spare you from that. And so, for example, I don't know a whole lot about the Rotary, but I know that if I Google Rotary Clubs International, I'll quickly come across a motto that reads, service over self. I got that correct. Close to service above self. Sorry, service above self. And I could see, oh, that's something about the Rotary. I kind of like that idea. Or I could see that on an international level, the Rotary has been committed to ending polio. Or I could see that locally, the Rotary does things like the Run for Life that I volunteered in. Or we have this beautiful park by the tribe that I sometimes take kids to. And I see all these great things, but none of that really compares to hearing someone's voice tell us about the passion we have, the Rotary, what we do, and why we do it. And there's some humanity in that. And I personally love hearing about it that way. So with Young Life, you could Google that pretty quickly and find out that Young Life is a non-denominational Christian nonprofit. We operate in 77 countries worldwide. We've impacted the lives of millions of teenagers since its inception in 1941. And there's a lot of information that you could learn. But I'm so honored to be here to share with you what you can't find out on the internet in a way that you can't find out. The way that we pound the table and we say, this is what we're passionate about. So if you look at Young Life on the internet, you'll probably see our mission statement, which is loving teens in their world, encouraging them to know Jesus. And that sort of hints a little bit at what we get to. But I'm going to state our passion plainly for you. And I wrote it down so I get it just right. In Young Life, we are passionate about positively impacting the lives of youth in a relational manner. And we'll pound the table about that one all day long. To clarify, or to give further clarification, we have a unique way of doing things. It's a relational way, and we aim it specifically at teenagers. And to give you an illustration of what we do and why we do it, I'm going to tell you a story about a girl who is here locally in Spruce Grove. We'll call her Sarah. And as I tell you her story, I'll highlight to you the things that we pound the table about in Young Life specifically. So, to give you some background, before Young Life entered Sarah's story, she was 14 years old and her dad died of leukemia. And that really threw the home situation for a loop. And she's lived since she was 14 years old in what you would call an unstable, single-parent home environment. And she hasn't had things quite as good as some teenagers have. On top of that, right after her father died, she decided, I'm going to do something about this cancer that took my dad from me. And so she shaved her head to help raise funds for research for cancer. And that was a noble thing. The problem with it was she showed up at a brand new middle school that fall, totally bald, and was bullied the whole way through. And so now this is where Young Life entered Sarah's story in 2009. She was a brand new grade 10 student at Spruce Grove Composite High School and thought, oh, more of the same. A few years of being bullied, a few years of living at this home that I don't particularly feel safe going to. And all that changed one day when something that we are passionate about in Young Life that we call contact work happened. And she was in a drama class, and the Young Life leader came up to her, this young adult woman, and said, "Hey, I'm Holly. How's it going?" And a friendship started there. That is something that we are passionate about in Young Life. This is contact work where an adult says, "I'm leaving the adult world and I'm going to this strange and dangerous place that is the world of teenagers. And I'm going as an outsider into this world of insiders at the risk of rejection and at the risk of whatever else might happen. We don't know what the kids are talking about. We didn't speak that language when we were their age." And they go. And so Holly became friends with Sarah. And they hung out, and it was wonderful that Holly was able to speak into her life, that she was able to introduce her to some friends. She was able to put her arm around Sarah when things weren't so good at home and say, "I'm sorry." And so that's what we call contact work. It is these adults going, and we'll pound the table about that too in Young Life. It's important. It makes us very unique, I think. Another thing that we were quite passionate about is club. It's a social alternative, positive social alternatives for teenagers. And so as Holly got to know Sarah, she invited her to come to club with us. If any of you have ever experienced a Young Life event, you might get a little bit of the picture, but for those of you who haven't, I'm going to try to do it justice. You picture Saturday Night Live on little or no budget, scaled back, and in someone's basement here in Spruce Grove, with a bunch of teenagers present. And we get these dozens of teens into a room, and it happens every week for senior high, every second week for junior high. And we have a great time together. All of a sudden, kids will be milling around, and then we sing. We have a guitarist and a singer, and we sing lots of songs that the kids are listening to these days. I am older than most of them. My favorites include The Summer of '69. We sing that quite often. We sing I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For by U2, or songs like that. And as you do that, these barriers break down between kids that know each other from school or know who they are, but all of a sudden there's a sense of community starting to form. And so when Sarah first went, oh, here's my name tag. That's distracting. I'm going to hide that. So when Sarah first went to club, she walked into this room, and even though she didn't know a lot of these kids, or she did sort of know them from school, but she was the girl who had it involved, all of a sudden she was immersed in this community where everyone was singing and dancing together and having a good time. We have a couple of skits at Young Life, ones that are leaders basically standing in front of everyone and doing who's on first or something funny like that, getting kids laughing. And another one where a kid participates in a bit of a game and gets to stand up front and sort of show their skill, whatever obscure skill we happen to test that night. And then there's a short talk. And the talk is about challenging kids to live up to their potential. And so we encourage development constantly in kids of all walks. We encourage physical and spiritual and emotional development. And we invest in the whole team. And so as Sarah started coming to club in 2009, 2010, I noticed her starting to open up. I noticed her starting to have friends. I noticed this girl who didn't have a whole lot of confidence at first saying hello to people. And we love that. That's the intention of club. And we'll pound the table about that in the other way. It's not a lot of pound, but we'll do it. And the other thing that we do in Young Life that we are very passionate about is camp. So we own a beautiful camp called Rock Ridge Canyon by Princeton, BC. And the whole goal of that camp is to show kids just how very valuable they are. And if you ever get a chance to see it, I didn't want to show the video because I don't want to take too long. But it's on online. Go to younglife.ca. You can find a link to the promotional video. And so this is a beautiful camp that we take things to, or take teams to. And what's unique about our camp philosophy, what we're very passionate about maintaining, is this. Our camp that has over 2,000 kids from across Canada go to it every year does not hire counselors. It doesn't. So there's staff there driving the boats, there's a Red Seal chef running the kitchen, there's all kinds of people, but they're not counselors. So when Sarah said at the end of the year, I want to go to camp, here's what happened. Holly, this leader who had befriended her, said, that's awesome. Your family has no money. We have to get you there. Just as a side note, we don't allow kids' financial status to determine who comes to camp. If a kid wants to go to camp with us, we get them there. And so here's what Sarah's leader did. She walked the ditch of Highway 627 for a whole Saturday, picking up garbage with Sarah. And they did bottle drives, and they sold chocolates, and they did a talent show, and they had a garage sale. And this adult leader was beside her the whole way, getting enough money so that Sarah could go to camp. And she did go to camp. And she got enough money to bring a friend to camp. And it was amazing. And so what I remember most vividly about that particular camp in the summer of 2010, Parkland Senior High Camp, is finding Sarah one day walking on the beach. And just this kind of weird look about her, kind of awestruck. And I went up to her and I said, "Hey, how's it going? What's going on?" And she said, "You know, Chris, I'm just blown away by all this. I'm having a great time. Our camp, we promise kids the best week of their lives, and we deliver. I check with them. They all affirm that." And she said, "This place is clearly an expensive camp," and it is. "And there's all these people working so hard to serve me meals. It's not buffet style, they get served. I have a beautiful bed to sleep in with sheets, not a sleeping bag that I brought from home." And she said, "I've never felt so valuable. I've never felt so loved. I've never felt like there was an adult that wanted to do anything more with me than get me a passing grade and get me out of their classroom." And I said, "That's great. That's what we want to do. That's our aim." And so we are passionate about that camping philosophy that proves to kids that they are valuable. Won't pound the table about that. And that camp changed Sarah's life. I saw her when she came back, and she got involved in what we call campaigners in Young Life. Campaigners is a weekly leadership group. We get together, we eat a meal, and we give kids opportunities to be leaders. We try to increase their sense of leadership and their leadership abilities, their sense of social responsibility, their sense of community building and ownership in what we do in Young Life. And as Sarah has participated in that, she's really become a leader. And it's been amazing how many times over the year I've seen her recognize a void of leadership and step up to it. She's in grade 12 now at Spruce Common. And I've seen a grade 10 girl come to club not knowing anyone, and Sarah be the first person there saying hello. That's risky for a kid, for those of us who don't know. And so this campaigner group has made a difference in Sarah's life, and I would say at this point she's even a leader in her campaigner group among the other campaigners. And that's something that we pound the table about, is taking kids from all walks of life and helping them to be leaders. And so those are sort of, we have contact work club, camp, campaigners, and those are things that sort of sum up our Young Life program. And they are things that we think are critical and that we're passionate about. But that is not yet the most passionate part of the story, and I'm going to end with this. Doing Young Life for a community to invest in teenagers is truly a community effort. It requires not just Holly, who's going to go say hi to that lonely kid who's been bullied in drama class. It requires adults from the community affirming Holly and providing leadership to what she's doing. We have a committee that does that. It involves adults from the community providing funds to get kids like Sarah to camp and for our operating budget. It requires adults saying, like the family that Sarah's campaigner group meets in, saying, "Yeah, come meet at our house. We'd love to do that." Or "Come have club at our house. Please try not to break anything, but it's okay if you do." And it happens sometimes, and we try to make it up to people as good as we can. And the funny thing about it is, as total a community effort as it is to do Young Life, the funny thing is that the effort of Young Life also builds community. And here is a very striking example of that from Sarah's life. I found out this spring that there is a family in my neighborhood, my neighbor actually, that the mom has leukemia, and the prognosis isn't good. It's bad. And she's got a 2-year-old daughter and a 14-year-old daughter named Val. And I found out about this one day, and I went over to their house and I said, "What can we do? Can we help? Is there something we can do?" And you know, there's always little things. You can bring food, or you can, pick me up at the hospital once in a while. I don't have a ride. But I had an idea one day, and I went and I said, "I know your daughter Val is not a Young Life kid. She hasn't come to anything, but could we take her to camp? It's a rough time in her life, and we'd love to take her. Let us take your daughter to camp." And the mom said, "Okay, yeah, you could take her to camp. That'd be all right." And I said, "That's awesome." And I left their house thinking, what am I going to do with this kid? Who's going to speak into her life? And I thought, who could be her friend and her leader and know where she's at? And I thought of one person. I thought of my friend Sarah. And I've noticed something about Sarah, is that she becomes quite emotional when we talk about mortality, when we talk about the idea of someone dying. And so I knew this would be hard, but I thought, I'm going to ask a favor of her. And so I arranged a meeting with her, and I have her young life leader nearby in case it did get quite emotional and she needed to be comforted. And I told her the story of this girl in my neighborhood, and her face went white. And she said, that's my story. That's the worst part of my story right there. It sounds like me going through it all over again. And I said, I know, and that's hard, and I'm sorry. And I said, but that's why I wanted to meet with you, Sarah. This girl needs someone, and we want to take her to camp with us. And out of everyone I know that I think could care for her the way she needs to be cared for, who would know what she needs, you're it. Would you consider coming to camp just to be Val's friend, to hang out with her and be her leader? And I sat there for a moment in a Starbucks, and I watched this young woman of 17, this person who's still just a child herself, really, summon up this inner strength and look me in the eye and say, yeah, I'll do that. That girl does need someone. And that makes some sense out of what I've been through in my life. So yeah, I'll do that, Chris. And it was a beautiful moment to understand that this young woman is committing to relive the worst part of her life through this girl, through helping her. Now tonight, Sarah and Val are going to get together. It's 6:30 this evening. They're going to go get together and play some board games with other girls who are going to camp and get to know them. And so she's doing it. They're going to camp. They're going to this beautiful camp in a couple weeks. And we're hoping for the best and preparing for the worst. We're prepared to fly her home quickly if we have to. But this whole thing is watching the work of Young Life take root in a young person's life. And you imagine it multiplied by the hundreds of kids we know in Parkland, the millions of kids that are impacted by Young Life worldwide. And you get a picture of why they're so passionate, why we pound the table about this. And so Sarah's sitting there saying, I'm going to take care of this girl. You could call that service above self, or you could call it loving teens in their world. But either way, when you see it, you recognize something beautiful in it, and I think it's something that we can all pound the table about. Thank you so much for having me.